Order, the clerk will call the roll. Obviously, we're short of quorum right now, but that doesn't mean we can't hear bills. Today we have 8 bills on the agenda, and I just want to remind everyone that invited testimony is limited to 5 minutes, and then public testimony is limited to 2 minutes, and please register on the kiosk outside the room. If you wish to submit written testimony, you're going to have to register and provide us at least 7 copies to the committee so we can distribute them and have those as part of the record. And we'll go ahead and get started this morning. First on the agenda is Senate Bill 646, and the chair recognizes Senator Nichols to explain the bill.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Senate Bill 646 gives Lamar State College Orange formula funding for students who take classes online but live in the adjacent parish of Louisiana. You can look across the river from that college. During the pandemic, Lamar State College Orange expanded its online offerings, particularly for its nursing program. Some of the students who attend live in Louisiana. If those students attend classes in person, the college receives formula funding. However, if those same students attend the class online, the college does not receive funding. Thus, this bill is necessary to capture that funding. Texas A&M Texarkana, who also has a similar problem, has similar language for students who live in the adjacent county, but in Arkansas, across the street. That's the request, and that's what the bill does.
Okay, so show one witness here, Wendy Elmore. The chair calls Wendy Elmore.
My name is Wendy Elmore. Good morning, Chair Creighton, and Vice Chair Middleton, and members of the Senate Subcommittee on Higher Education. I am the Provost of Lamar State College Orange. LSCO is a 2-year state college that transforms lives through its robust and relevant technical and academic transfer programs. Geographically, the college is located in the southeasternmost corner of Texas and shares a border with Louisiana. Across the state line, both Calcasieu and Cameron parishes of Louisiana are contiguous to Orange County. The distance from these parishes is so close that more than 800 of the residents from those parishes work in Orange County. Our fall 2022 enrollment surpassed 2,600 students, with 150 of them residing in our neighboring state. This represents close to 10% of our non-dual credit population. And more than 3/4 of those Louisiana students reside in those contiguous parishes. As outlined in Texas Education Code 54.231, all Louisiana residents are eligible for our affordable in-state tuition. However, due to child care limitations, transportation barriers, and work schedule conflicts, around 40% of our students enroll in online courses. Many of them, both Louisiana and Texas residents, work rotating shifts in the petrochemical and logistics industries and require a flexible college schedule. In order for them to have a better life for themselves and their families, which college education provides, distance education courses are the only way for these students to have access to higher education while they continue working and taking care of their families' most critical needs. LSCO is not eligible to receive formula funding, as Senator Nichols referenced, for all of those students. For instance, during the fall 2022 semester, 53 of our Louisiana students were excluded from formula funding due to the fact that they are out-of-state students who are enrolled in online courses. Senate Bill 646, relating to formula funding for certain non-resident students enrolled at Lamar State College Orange, proposes an arrangement very similar to the one currently provided at Texas A&M University Texarkana, a college that borders a neighboring state just like LSCO does. I'm available to answer any questions that you may have.
Members, any questions? The witness? Thank you, Dr. Elmore. I'm a huge fan of Lamar. Thank you for coming today.
Thank you for the opportunity.
Is there anyone else that wishes to testify on, for, or against Senate Bill 646? Okay, hearing none. If not, public testimony is closed on Senate Bill 646. Senate Bill 646 will be left pending. Thank you, Senator Nichols.
You literally, from the second story of the building, can look down into Louisiana. It's that close. The river is right there. And those people live and work on both sides. Thank you.
It's a good bill. Good bill. All right. And the chair recognizes Senator Springer as present. Chair lays out Senate Bill 200 by Senator Eckert. Senator Eckert, do you have a committee substitute?
Yes, sir, I do.
Thank you.
Do we have the sub?
Okay. Senator Springer sends up the committee substitute for Senate Bill 200 and recognizes Senator Eckert to explain the difference between the substitute and the original as-filed measure.
Thank you so much, Senator Middleton. And members of the committee, I appreciate the opportunity to lay out Senate Bill 200 as well as its sub. If you're a Texas resident and wish to re-enroll in higher education as an undergraduate, you may be able to waive your previous academic record and begin a new course of study with a clear academic record under the current Academic Fresh Start law. Under the current law, if a prospective student has credits for college courses taken 10 or more years prior to the planned enrollment date, those credits and grades can be waived from consideration for admissions decisions. But that 10-year look back has not been updated since 1993, and we believe this policy is in need of adjustment as the state looks to enroll and work with more adult learners and encourage them to get back into higher education. Members, the committee substitute for SB 200 makes the following changes to the bill. Originally, we had hoped that it would be a 5-year across-the-board look back, but in discussion with the coordinating board and the institutions of higher education, the committee substitute lays it out as institutions of higher education may choose a number of years within the range of 5 to 10 years to make an academic fresh start available. Also, the committee substitute eliminates the language in our bill concerning academic credits. Originally, we had hoped that these non-traditional returning students would be able to harvest their good credits, but wipe away their bad ones. In discussion with the board as well as the institutions of higher education, there were difficulties in getting to that just yet. So we took that out of the bill. And so the committee substitute, again, provides a range of 5 to 10 years at the discretion of the university and also does not allow the harvesting of good credits. But we're going to keep working on that.
Thank you, Senator. Are there any questions of the author?
We do. Also, I left off one other. Finally, each institution will be required to post its Academic Fresh Start policy on its website and submit their Academic Fresh Start policies to the coordinating board. That also is in the committee substitute. We do have a resource witness. We have Assistant Commissioner Elizabeth Mayer. Thank you so much for making yourself available for us from the coordinating board here as a resource witness, as well as some invited testimony.
Thank you. Senator Springer moves adoption of the committee substitute for Senate Bill 200. Okay, we'll pause that for a second until we get quorum here. Sorry about that. So the floor is now open for testimony and committee substitute for Senate Bill 200. I believe we have a resource witness here with us, Elizabeth Mayer, with the Texas Higher Education Coordinating Board. And we also have one witness who may need to register, Daniel Arvello.
Daniel's right here.
Daniel? Okay. Did you wish to testify? I think you're going to need to fill out a card here.
Come on up.
If we can get the resource up here,
Yeah.
Oh,
and
yes.
if we could call Elizabeth Mayer as well.
get the train running.
Good morning. Hi, I'm Elizabeth Mayer. I'm the Assistant Commissioner for Academic and Health Affairs at the Texas Higher Education Coordinating Board.
Thank you for joining us today.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Elizabeth, I like the idea of giving people a second chance, somebody who wants to, for whatever reason, they maybe didn't take it school as serious as they were.
Yes, sir.
About half of my fraternity probably fit in that category. And so sympathetic for those who want to be able to come back and do that. My question really got around in staff and I had this conversation. And I don't know if it's addressed in the bill, the substitute, or what, which is, students get so much hours of in-state tuition. And then, so would they get a restart completely of that?
Yes. So they would get a restart in that aspect, but their federal financial aid, that clock, would still be applicable.
Okay. So their federal side, I guess I'm looking at state budget side. It's sort of, what.
It would
potential.
restart.
So today we already do that, but we just
Yes.
require 10 years. So we would
Yes,
be
sir.
in the same boat, just giving the option to go down to 5.
Yes, sir. And part of that is because we are trying to encourage more students to come back
Yeah.
into higher education. And so I think there may be some hesitancy by some students to come back because of their maybe less than full effort potentially,
Right.
or their challenges that they had going on in their life that they may not have been able to have
Well,
that opportunity.
and that was my question. If you got 45 hours in with a 0.8 GPA, and
Correct.
you've finally gotten through and dropped out and gone on, and you come back, if they think that they're going to have, geez, once I hit 80 hours, now I get to start paying the full freight.
Yeah.
They also may be hesitant. So
Yes.
but all right, that's what I was looking for. I appreciate it. Thank you, Elizabeth.
Yes, sir.
Thank you for joining us. Daniel, Chair calls Daniel Arvello.
It's Mike.
State your name and who you're with and your position on the bill. Thank you.
Hi. Good morning. My name is Daniel Arevalo. I'm a current student at Austin Community College. I want to thank the committee for hearing my testimony this morning. I am in favor of SB 200. Before as I said, I'm currently a student at Austin Community College. Before that, I was a dropout. After I graduated high school, class of 2014, I went to Lone Star Community College for about a year and a half. Problem was I was already working, was earning a lot of money. I was going up, moving up. I was a little lazy. I was a little impatient. Just wanted to start working, getting a move on. I wasted a lot of good semesters. For 6 years, I worked. For 3 of those years, I was a mechanic working on cars. I was very proud of that work that I did. That's where I really learned what hard work was. I was proud to work 10, 12-hour shifts in the Houston heat with men who had been doing it for years, who respected my work ethic, and I grew as a person. I learned about leadership, learned social skills, and these guys only really cared about putting food on the table, taking care of their families, supporting their families. I really resonated with that. A lot of them told me as I moved up, Daniel, what are you doing here? You're not like the other guys in the back room. Why didn't you go to school? I would tell them, and they would say, go back. Stop putting this off. Stop procrastinating. And it resonated. And I listened. I went back to school. I went to Austin Community College. After 3 semesters, I've earned a 3.37 GPA. I've earned a spot in their honors program. And I've had professors come up to me asking if I want a letter of recommendation. I didn't have to ask them. They've come to me. After those 3 semesters, a lot of advisors told me that I was ready to start ready for transfer. I wanted to go back to Houston. My sister just had her first kid, my younger sister. I'm an uncle now. I want to be around family. I applied to University of Houston. I got rejected because of that 8-year-old transcript that I had from Lone Star Community College. What this bill would do for me is, instead of having that 10-year minimum, bring it down to 5 years, allow me to just start getting the ball rolling. After this semester, I'm out of credits, and I think this would also help a lot of other students that are in the same position as I am. Thank you.
Any questions?
Mr. Chair. Daniel, thank you very much. You put a much better face on it than my fraternity brothers that didn't do the right thing for immensely terrible 180-degree difference. And so you put a very good face on this bill, and I appreciate you coming here and sharing that with us.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you so much.
Very powerful story, Daniel. Thank you for taking the time to come to your state capitol for this important bill. Proud to support it, by the way, Senator. So
Thank you
you
so
for bringing
much.
the bill. Is there anyone else that wishes to testify on, for, or against Senate Bill 200 for today? Okay, hearing none. Public testimony is now closed for Senate Bill 200. And Senate Bill 200 will be left pending. Thank you, Senator Eckhart.
So much, Senator Middleton and committee members. Springer.
Okay, classmate.
Okay. Okay, the chair lays out Senate Bill 2294 by Senator Creighton, and I believe there is a committee substitute, which we're not able to adopt right now. And the chair recognizes Senator Springer to lay out Senate Bill 2294.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. During the 87th legislative session, Senator Creighton authored Senate Bill 1888 to establish the Texas First Early High School Completion Program and the Texas First Scholarship Program. This proposal allows Texas resident students who demonstrate early readiness for college to graduate from Texas public high schools early and to receive a scholarship to an eligible Texas institution. These programs were created to address the significant amount of high-performing Texas high school graduates leaving the state to attend out-of-state universities or not enrolling in a higher education at all upon graduation. Under Senate Bill 1888, eligibility for the program is limited to institutions of higher education designated as a research university or emerging research university under the coordinating board. Senate Bill 2294 aims to expand accessibility to Texas First program enrollment, ensure that eligible students are granted early graduation. The changes enacted by Senate Bill 2294 would expand eligibility of the Texas First programs to more institutions of higher education by removing the research university designation requirement for the program's enrollment and expand eligibility to any public technical institute, public junior college, public college, or university. There is a committee sub. Let me go ahead and describe that. It simply takes the filed version of Senate Bill 22 and makes it ledge council draft. Sort of pull the string, repeat that statement for about half the bill. So, but with that, I am happy to answer any questions, and there may not be any witnesses. So it's it was a great, successful program. Why not?
Now, members, any questions? Senator Springer? Seeing no one to ask questions, there aren't any. Is there anyone wishing to testify on, for, or against Senate Bill 2294
Good.
for today? Okay. Seeing none, public testimony is closed for Senate Bill 2294. Senate Bill 2294 will be left pending. Thank you, Senator Springer, for laying out the bill for Senator Creighton. Chair lays out Senate Bill 336 by Senator Zaffarini and recognizes Senator Springer to explain the bill.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. It's an honor to lay out Senator Zaffarini's bill 336. It is relating to the compliance programs at public institutions of higher education. Employees' willingness to raise issues at work with supervisors, to submit reports identifying problems, and to participate in compliance investigation often depends on whether their identities can be protected. Currently, institutions of higher education are required to maintain the anonymity of employees who make compliance reports or participate in compliance investigations. This protection, however, does not extend to agents or contractors acting on the institution's behalf. 336 would redefine the compliance program that protects the anonymity of employees by including agents, contractors, or other persons acting on behalf of the institution of higher education who makes compliance reports or participates in compliance investigations. And then she does note that North Texas plays in the championship at NIT tonight at 8:20 locally on ESPN2. But with that, I'm happy to answer any questions.
Members, no members ask any questions. So we have one witness registered here. The chair calls Jeffrey Graves. Jeffrey Graves.
Good morning.
Good morning. You could state your name, who you're with, and your position on the bill.
So I'm here to testify as a resource. If you have any questions, my name is Jeff Graves. I'm the Chief Compliance Officer for the University of Texas at Austin. This bill, as was succinctly stated, would fill a gap that would make the same protections of the Education Code provision extend to agents and contractors. That's important for higher ed. There are a lot of contractors, a lot of people on campus that perform duties like employees and appear as employees to people, housing and dining, lots of folks on campus that are vendors, contractors, providing various services, housing and food service. At UT, the Moody Center is run by contractors for concerts, things like that. So this would extend the protections of the Education Code to people making reports in those positions as well. I'm happy to take any questions.
The only other one I think can continue on. Senator Zaffarine wanted to know if North Texas wins the national championship, are we going to light the tower green at UT? No, okay. Thank you very much for your testimony.
Thank you.
It's not a question you can answer. Thank you. Are there any questions? Okay, seeing none. I don't see anyone else registered here. Is there anyone else wishing to testify on, for, or against Senate Bill 336 here today? Okay, seeing none, public testimony is now closed, and Senate Bill 336 will be left pending. Thank you, Senator Springer, for laying out Senate Bill 336. Right. Okay. The chair lays out Senate Bill 526 by Senator West, and I recognize Senator Springer to lay out the bill. I believe we have a committee substitute also.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I will describe that.
Sends up the committee sub, and I recognize you to describe the difference between the substitute and the original as-filed measure.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. This bill is being done to advance the Pell Grant program becoming fully available to inmates in our prison system. Members, there is a substitute, and what this bill does, this is an uncomplex, common-sense bill which will protect those persons who are incarcerated in the penal institutions or the Texas Civil Commitment Center as they make utilization of the Pell Grants. The only difference between the substitute and the introduced bill is that the substitute gives the Higher Ed Coordinating Board rulemaking authority to implement these provisions. Pell Grants, after a long absence, will begin flowing to inmates of correctional institutions again this summer, thanks to the actions of the federal government. Although the federal rules have robust guardrails, working with Texas Department of Criminal Justice, there is one more layer which we believe will provide these necessary protections in Texas, and that is obtaining the approval of the Higher Education Coordinating Board for those programs offered in penal institutions. Requiring this approval will ensure that those programs offered in our penal institutions and civil commitment centers will be of the highest quality and provide the real value to the inmates upon their release and re-entry into society. The only difference is, as I described, the request of the Higher Educating Coordinating Board gives the rulemaking authority surrounding these provisions. There is a resource witness from both the Higher Education Coordinating Board and the Texas Department of Criminal Justice to answer any questions if there may be any. But again, this is an uncomplicated bill, and Senator West urges its passage. And he also is a proud representative of UNT Dallas, so I'm sure he'll be cheering for UNT tonight as well.
Go Green. We have one invited testimony, Christopher Carter. The chair calls Christopher Carter. We also have a resource witness available, Elizabeth Mayer with the Texas Higher Education Coordinating Board.
I don't need it. I don't need it as a resource unless you do, Mr. Chairman.
No
Pretty
objection there.
straightforward, common sense bill to me.
Thank you, Christopher.
Thank you, sir.
Oh, I'm sorry. Unless
Any
you want to add
questions?
something.
Any-
I don't
sorry,
have
any
any
questions?
I'm sorry, I was signing stuff
Or
in and
invited
see you walked
testimony?
out.
No.
No, I'm good.
Okay. You're home free now. Yeah. Is there anyone else wishing to testify on, for, against? Okay, I see one registered here. The chair calls Jonathan Feinstein. Jonathan Feinstein. If you can
Morning,
state
Vice
your
Chair.
name and who you're with and your position on the bill.
Sure. My name is Jonathan Feinstein, testifying on behalf of the Education Trust in support of Senate Bill 526. Thanks again for the opportunity to testify and to Senator West for bringing forward this legislation. As stated, the bill reflects pretty sound logic. Our higher education agency should be involved in ensuring that higher education in the state, wherever it's taking place, is of the highest possible quality. Higher education in prison may be unfamiliar to some, but it is not new to Texas. We've had successful programs operating going back as far as the 1960s. Today, several thousand incarcerated people have received workforce credentials, associate's, and even bachelor's degrees from several Texas colleges and universities. Post-secondary programming in prisons have been linked with substantially reduced recidivism, better employment and earnings outcomes upon release, and, importantly, improved safety and security within prisons. There are strong reasons for us to want to get as many students involved as possible, but cost has always been a limiting factor. What has changed is the Pell Grants, and in 2020, the federal government reinstated Pell Grant eligibility for incarcerated students effective July of this year. The federal rules governing Pell Grants in prisons designate the Texas Department of Criminal Justice as the ultimate decider regarding which programs are approved, where they operate, and who has access. These rules don't prescribe a role for the coordinating board, however, which makes this bill very useful to ensure we utilize the full range of expertise to do this right and advance our state's goals. I also appreciate working with Senator West to make a technical change in the committee substitute. The federal rules require two different approval processes for Pell-funded programs in prisons: an initial approval process similar to an RFP, and a subsequent more robust review of programs informed by data to ensure they are high quality for students. The revised language ensures the coordinating board lends its expertise in both of these processes. So again, this bill is an excellent first step for our state to capitalize on the many opportunities offered by Pell reinstatement. We look forward to working with you, the coordinating board, TDCJ, and our colleges to achieve these goals. Thank you for your time. Happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, Jonathan. Any questions of the witness?
Hit what I was thinking. You know, if you want people to turn their lives around, you better give them some hope. And if you don't have this opportunity, it's pretty much stuck. So thank you.
Pell Grant's a wonderful program. Thank you, Jonathan. Is there anyone else wishing to testify on, for, or against Senate Bill 526? Okay. If not, public testimony is closed for Senate Bill 526. The committee, oh, sorry, not the committee substitute. Senate Bill 526 will be left pending. Thank you, Senator Springer. The chair lays out Senate Bill 532 by Senator West. Recognize Senator Springer to explain the bill. Do you have a committee substitute, by the way?
I do.
You do. Okay. Senator Springer sends up the committee substitute for Senate Bill 532. I recognize Senator Springer to explain the difference between the substitute and the original as filed measure.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. This bill relates to mental health professional loan program, and I'll be also discussing at the end the difference between the substitute. Last year, Senator West was appointed by the Lieutenant Governor to a special committee to protect all Texans, which was the Senate's investigatory committee to examine the massacre at Robb Elementary School in Uvalde and its aftermath and its recovery. That committee spent a great deal of time addressing mental health needs of children and young adults as part of its public testimony and public deliberations. One of his biggest takeaways from the committee was related to the mental health care, but not just the need of more mental health care, but also the need for more mental health care professionals to provide that care. Put simply, we cannot have enough counselors in our schools if we do not have enough licensed counselors in our state. We cannot have enough psychologists in our new state hospitals if we don't have enough psychiatrists in Texas willing to do that work. To help solve that problem, this bill does a few things. And here's also where I will let you know the minor changes that have been made in the substitute. First, the bill changes the duration of the loan repayment program from 5 to 3 years. This will allow us to incentivize more mental health professionals to work in those areas of critical need. Second, and this is the change that he made in the substitute. While the mental health loan repayment program typically applies only to those areas designated as mental health professional shortage areas, which includes a total of 248 counties across Texas, the substitute adds local mental health authorities in our state psychiatric hospitals as places that persons take advantage of this program may work in order to qualify for the program. Members, Senator West wants to tell you how grateful he is to have Senator Schwartner, who created this program, as a co-author on the bill, and he's excited to be working with him and other co-authors on the bills. For those of you who ask about the fiscal note, the funding of this program was raised in the base budget by more than tenfold to $24 million across the biennium. Chair Huffman and our leadership knows how important this program is to our state. I'm confident that these changes to this program will help it function even better. Members, every day that we sit in these committee rooms and in the chamber, the people of Texas await the fullness of this legislator's response to Uvalde massacre. This must be part of that response. Our mental health needs in this state are significant, and only a moonshot in the number of mental health care professionals willing to work in shortage areas will help those in need.
Thank you, Senator.
Mr. Chairman, I would ask myself a question since to Senator West, but I totally agree with him, and I'm not going to use a UNT one here. Look, I have the Wichita Falls State Hospital, and those who do not know that we have 200 empty beds. We spent millions and millions building more beds because we're 300 mental health professionals short. I've got some suggestions. I love his suggestion. It's not a one silver bullet's going to fix it all. We've got to look at all of these. We have 15% of the people who are in our county jails cannot stand competency to stand trial. They spend an average of about 500 days now in those. If they're innocent, that's just a travesty and an injustice. And our local taxpayers are paying county taxes to house those inmates, and we need to get them the help they need as quickly as possible.
Thank you, Senator Springer. I also appreciate the creativity on working in UNT in every single bill here today. So, very, very good. Now, we have a resource witness here today, Charles Poles with the Texas Higher Education Coordinating Board, Assistant Commissioner. Any questions for our resource witness? Okay. And then we have one person registered, Allison Boulware. Chair calls Allison Boulware.
Good morning, Chairman and small committee today, but not small on laughs. My name is Allison Moore-Bulber, and I'm the Director of Policy at the Hogg Foundation for Mental Health, and I'm here on Senate Bill 532. And I just want to share a little bit of information about what the bill would do and how it would impact the mental health workforce. Now, there have been several priorities related to the mental health workforce, specifically about this program, because we know that this program is successful. It was created in 2015. There have been 270 professionals served, and right now there are currently 98 professionals. Now, we know that reducing the program from 5 years to 3 years and allowing that 3 years to get a level amount each year would be a better incentive for folks. They would be able to get loan repayment quicker, and when we know that people are choosing where to work after they graduate from college, loan repayment is a huge incentive to them, and it might get someone to work in an underserved area, especially if they know that they're going to get those loans repaid. Now, the local mental health authority and state hospital piece is also a huge incentive. So right now, you might be working at a state hospital, but technically the state hospital isn't considered a mental health professional shortage area, which means that those folks are left out, because it's done by facility. So this bill with the committee sub would mean that all 9 state hospitals would be included, plus 26 local mental health authorities that are not currently included in the program. So truly, with the $28 million and with these changes, the 5 to 3 year and adding in those other facilities, this will make sure that all $28 million are used and that it would be for hundreds of mental health professionals, not just 98. I'm happy to answer any questions that y'all have, but this is an agreed upon recommendation from the mental health and substance use community.
Thank you, Allison. Any questions? Mr. Springer?
Probably not. You may want to comment, but my comment on it is also because I know we have all the representatives from our higher education institutions. We just have to make sure that this is getting out there to the students so they know about these programs. I know I spent time in Wichita Falls with MSU and that system, and says, you know, we've got to start graduating more than we do every single year, because we see mental health issues going up like this and graduate numbers staying somewhat flat. We are going to constantly have this problem, and we've got to make sure that we're letting kids know we want you in this field, and here's a great opportunity to come out debt free for a short, truly nowadays a short period of service.
Mm-hmm. And if I could add, I'm from a rural area. I'm from near Midland, Odessa, and I know that to get people out to those areas, having an incentive like this for 3 years can really make a difference in getting someone that wants those loans paid off. So thank y'all for considering this.
Thank you,
Allison. Okay, is there anyone else wishing to testify on, for, or against Senate Bill 532? Anyone else? Okay, if not, public testimony is closed on Senate Bill 532. Senate Bill 532 will be left pending. Thank you, Senator Springer. And the subcommittee on higher education will stand at ease pending the next item on the agenda, which is Senate Joint Resolution 81 by Senator Birdwell. So that's what's next on deck. Senate Subcommittee on Higher Education will come to order, and the clerk will call the roll.
Senator Creighton,
Here.
Senator Middleton,
Present.
Senator King, Senator Springer, Senator West. Quorum is present.
Okay, a quorum is present. We're actually going to move on to Senate Bill 18 now instead of Senate Joint Resolution 81 for everyone here today to testify. The chair lays out Senate Bill 18 by Senator Creighton and recognizes Senator Creighton to explain the bill.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Members, this committee last session discussed the benefits and the disadvantages of continuing the practice of tenure. Last session, we had an extensive hearing with legislation Senator Bettencourt had brought forward a couple of years ago, and then I also advanced a bill that was considered in the session in that particular hearing as well. We've seen the brand and the reputation of several of our colleges and universities, including our flagships, certainly have been damaged because of the actions of a few vocal and fringe tenured faculty. Additionally, there is more evidence that non-tenured professors are contributing a disproportionate level of instructional time compared to their tenured counterparts, and Senate Bill 18 ends the practice of guaranteed lifetime employment through tenure. All currently tenured professors will not be affected by the legislation, and if passed, Senate Bill 18 would not allow public institutions of higher education to grant academic tenure starting from September 1st, 2023 going forward. Senate Bill 18 opens and furthers a conversation about the existing tenure that we have, members, and the question of whether or not tenure is working as intended. Thank you, Mr. Chairman and members.
Thank you, Senator Creighton. Any questions, author? Okay. The floor is now open for testimony on Senate Bill 18, and we'll begin with our invited witnesses here. The chair calls Tom Lindsay, Adam Kissel, and James Weatherby. Tom Lindsay, Adam Kissel, and James Weatherby.
From Tech, is that one of the provided guys? Okay. I remember getting last time. All right.
And we'll start with you, Tom.
Thank you, sir. Is this on? Yes. Good morning. My name is Tom Lindsay. I'm Distinguished Research Fellow at the Texas Public Policy Foundation, and I'm testifying in support of the bill. A little bit of biography. When I entered the job market as a newly minted PhD in the late 80s, I and my fellow young faculty were assured by the tenured faculty, once you get tenure, it takes, quote, an act of Congress to get you out. So we were all excited. Since then, I've received tenure at two institutions, most recently from the University of Dallas in Irving, where I served as Dean of the Graduate School and then Provost. I also had a chance to observe these issues from a nationwide perspective when I was Deputy Chairman of the National Endowment for Humanities. Now, when I looked at this bill, my three primary concerns were this. Would the bill undermine academic freedom? Would it harm the economic position of the professoriate, and would it undermine the academic quality of both the professors and, in the future, the universities themselves? I support this bill because I came to the conclusion that none of those three are threatened. First, my experience over the last 34 years has been that too many of us academics, after getting tenure, enjoy something that tenure really was never intended to produce, and that's a virtual lifetime job, meaning a lack of accountability, in our case, to the taxpayers of Texas. And it's virtually impossible today, once you get tenure, to lose it. Now, all occupations throughout history require regular accountability checks, right? Incentives and disincentives, promotions and dismissals. This all comes from the fact that we're human, all too human. Now, again, as someone who's spent his life in academia, I'd love to think that as a PhD, I'm above the merely human, but I know better. Therefore, it seems to me common sense to apply the same accountability to those of us who are college teachers as the whole world is under. Because I don't want to claim that as a PhD, my virtues are such that I alone can dismiss the accountability required of the rest of us mere human beings. I also think that on the issue of appointments and admissions, what we've seen here is, and my colleagues will talk about this, tenure hasn't realized the academic freedom it was meant to realize. I mean, sure, a lifetime job without the possibility of getting fired is academic freedom. But fortunately, you can get academic freedom other ways. And the second provision of the bill as filed here leaves open to boards the opportunities to find other ways. And specifically, I'm very familiar with models that do a 3-3-5, meaning when you first start as a professor, you get and they're rolling contracts, you get a 3-year contract, then another 3-year, and then after that, it's 5-year contracts for the rest of your career. Because again, as someone who's spent his life in the academy, the amount of years that we spend getting a PhD does merit some sort of different arrangement. So there are, as I say, there are different models: 3-year contracts, 5-year, 7-year. That's a lot of security. I don't know anybody who's got a 7-year or even a 5-year contract. I guess maybe A-Rod, but other than that, I mean that's. I have to confess that that's a good deal, and also because of problems with its own business model today, according to the AAUP. The number of tenured faculty has shrunk to 21% of the rest of the faculty. So this is something that's been happening for other causes. I also would note that there are schools that have strong and clear missions and that don't give tenure. And I'm thinking here of the Franklin Olin College of Engineering, U.S. Military Academy at West Point, the Howard Hughes Medical Institute. Now, that model doesn't work for every school, but if you've got a clear mission, it can. I believe that accomplished and productive faculty deserve some measure of job security through, as I mentioned, long-term contracts, and added to that a review, regular and periodic reviews. And one last thing I'll say here, this is an issue that I thought when I researched it separated the left and the right, but we're finding in my own research, and I can talk about that later, there is a case from the left also against tenure. Thank you very much.
Yeah.
Any questions?
Yeah. Yes.
Mr. Creighton.
Thank you. Yes, I just wanted to follow up with your comments in that last point you made. Yes, we have bipartisan support on the legislation, and you know, it's interesting. You mentioned the declining percentages of tenure that's offered. I think you mentioned a national statistic that's close to 80-20.
Yes.
20 that have it and close to 80 that do not. That's pretty consistent in the state of Texas among public universities, and then you see with MD Anderson as they offer teaching, research, certainly patient care, many other disciplines. They, considered the best in the world, they don't offer tenure. I wonder how they maintain that level of respect and reverence across the world without tenure. But I was just going to get your thoughts on
Yes, sir. I wondered about that too. As I said, that was my third consideration. Can you keep quality? Catherine Trower at Harvard, who's studied tenure for a number of years, says, and she's right, the best don't care about tenure. Your stars don't care about tenure. So the idea that you will not be able to recruit stars without it, I don't think is well-founded at all.
Do you have any information related to the declining percentages where tenure has been offered? Because we're not hearing that over that decline, just organically, that universities are reporting any negative effects from that. So in other words, there's not been any reports of diminishing returns over the percentages of tenure track or tenure offered positions as they've declined has had a net negative result on universities and their goals. So do you, if you
None that
heard-
they've reported that I have seen.
Yeah.
Again, here, my fellow panelists can talk a little bit more about the academic freedom component of this, but no, they haven't.
Okay, thank you.
In fact, sometimes it's the non-tenured professors who are the better teachers.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Tom. James Weatherby, next. Yeah. Thank you.
Oh, I'm up now?
Yeah.
Okay.
Thank you, James.
Thank you.
If you could pull the microphone close to you, thank you.
Sure. You know, you can get your own research on this problem. Simply go to a university in your area and ask to visit a couple of classes where juniors and seniors are, and ask them how many of you have experienced a faculty member while you've been here, one or more, that you can't believe is on the payroll teaching your classes. I get a unanimous response every time I do that, which is really troubling. And part of the problem was tenure, which was set out to protect academic freedom, has morphed into guaranteed job for life. It was never supposed to be guaranteed job for life. As a PhD student, I was concerned by hearing faculty talk about the benefits of becoming a professor and having tenure. I became more alarmed once I became a professor, and I've provided articles that have quotes from things that I have heard from different professors. But just as an example, a professor at the University of Houston was complaining about students and how irritating they were and burdensome. And I asked him, I said, why do you stay a professor? And he said, why would I give up a guaranteed job for life? And if that's the reason someone's a professor, that's just simply the wrong reason. Consequently, I have, you have to get tenure to stay. That's part of the problem with that 20%. Tenure is an up or out decision. So either you get it or you're out. So right now, as they're trying to reduce faculty to have the flexibility of more adjuncts and what they call professors of practice, that if you don't get tenure, then you're out on your own. So that we lose some good talent and retaining some people who have tenure because of that churning that's not taking place that should take place. But as even more troubling, and this is public record, this is going to sound horrible, this is public record. We had a dean at Texas Tech who was removed for grade tampering. He'd been investigated by a committee for doing that, and he also was removed for not protecting females from a predatory faculty member who was a friend of hers. So he's fired as dean, but he remains on the faculty because he has tenure. Now, which of our taxpayers want to pay for that? And who wants their sons or daughters being taught by someone like that? Another associate dean at our college was fired from being associate dean for misappropriating funds and paying her wife as a research assistant, which she was doing literature reviews, and this is somewhere in the neighborhood of $250,000 over a several-year period. She gets fired for that, but she remains on the faculty as a tenured professor. And again, I just question, that should be grounds for termination in any other world, but we allow that to happen in academia, and it's just incredibly problematic. Now, there's going to be a lot of red herrings for this bill, which I do support, and one of the red herrings is, and the faculty uses, well, we've got to protect our academic freedom. Academic freedom, by law, federal law, is protected by the First Amendment. Tenure is simply a contract, but you do have free speech because of the First Amendment. Another red herring you have, and Senator Creighton, it pertained to your question, can we maintain the quality? Tenure was abolished in the United Kingdom in the 1980s by Margaret Thatcher as an effort to increase the productivity in higher education. The two premier universities there, Oxford and Cambridge, thank you, are still ranked among the top 10 universities in the world. So it does not mean you're going to lose the quality. Now, when change is inevitable, and I teach technology, and I've brought about a lot of change in a lot of organizations. When change is inevitable, the best thing to do is to recognize it and facilitate it happening rather than trying to keep it from happening. I'm proud to be a Texan. I'd be really proud of Texas if we led the way on this issue before some other state does.
Thank you, James. If you could state your name and position on the bill.
James Weatherby, and I'm just here as an independent. The taxpayers did not pay my travel to come down here.
And you're for the bill?
I am absolutely for the bill.
Thank you.
Yes.
Any questions?
No.
Chair. Thank you. Next, we've got Adam Kissel. If you could state your name and who you're with and your position on the bill.
My name is Adam Kissel. I'm visiting fellow for higher education reform at the Heritage Foundation. Thank you, Chair Creighton, Vice Chair Middleton, Senator Springer, for having me here today to talk about tenure. I've taught courses at the University of Chicago, which offers tenure, and at Liberty University, which generally doesn't offer tenure. I've worked in higher education policy, advocacy, and philanthropy throughout my career. For 5 years, I worked at the Foundation for Individual Rights in Education, or FIRE, where I directed the program that defended faculty and student rights. But I'm here to say, Mr. Chair, that I don't know a single free speech or academic freedom case where tenure made the difference in protecting a faculty member's rights. As the previous speaker said, this is because every faculty member at a public institution of higher education has full free speech and academic freedom rights, regardless of tenure. An institution that offers tenure does, however, restrict the free speech and academic freedom of its junior faculty, and here's why. Tenure is a make or break, all or nothing situation made first of all, it's a decision made first of all by one's own colleagues in their own department. That means as a junior scholar, you walk on eggshells for 7 years. You can't rock the boat. You can't say something that your colleagues don't like. You have to toe the party line, and you risk alienating the people who are going to vote on your future if you don't. So as a result of the tenure process, junior faculty members self-censor. I commend to you the excellent book called Passing on the Right, in which the authors, after interviewing 150 faculty members, showed the extent to which conservative professors, quote, admit to closeting themselves prior to tenure by passing as liberals. A second disadvantage of tenure is that there's no long-term quality control. There's generally three kinds of outcomes when someone reaches tenure. The first group, as our first speaker said, they maintain their inner motivation. They continue to produce high-quality work. They're going to be stellar scholars with or without tenure. They're going to have no trouble passing an annual review year after year after year. But there's a second group. They become deadwood, right? Tenure gives them job security. They coast, they quiet quit, but they have tenure, so it's very difficult to fire them. And then there's a third group who say, now I can become an activist. For them, academia is about exerting power rather than discovering and sharing knowledge, which was the point of tenure in the first place. This third group of faculty subvert the goals of higher education because they no longer have the intellectual humility of the scholar, they have the hubris of the activist. But they have tenure, so they get to do this for the rest of their career, and there's virtually nothing that we can do to stop them. Beyond these first two problems, self-censorship by junior faculty and quality control for senior faculty, let me share one third problem with the subcommittee. Tenure is so ingrained in higher ed that it gets in the way of innovation. The traditional model of tenure locks in a reward structure that discourages new operational models. If you want to attract top talent to public institutions in Texas, like I'm sure you do, I recommend giving those institutions new flexibilities in how they reward excellent performance. When faculty members know that they will be rewarded every year on the basis of how much value they created that year, they have incentives to perform very well every year, just like in the private sector. Being rewarded based on performance throughout your career provides an incentive to perform throughout your career. Without tenure, institutions will find new ways to attract, retain, and promote top talent. That's because tenure is not the only thing that professors value. They are willing to exchange tenure for other things. It could be higher salary. It could be the university promises to attract the top graduate students in the world to work with you. There's a lot of ways to do this. Let me conclude with one last observation. Tenure seems no longer appropriate today for today's colleges and universities because they no longer act like elite institutions. As recently as 2 generations ago, only a small proportion of Americans went to college. Today, through trillions of dollars in student loans, we have, I think, in good ways, democratized higher education. But what that means is we have thousands of professors who think they're in just one more democratic institution that's another political player on the scene. We used to give colleges deference because we could trust them to cleave to knowledge, wisdom, truth, beauty, goodness, but they broke our trust when they became activists. And our democracy came back knocking on the gates, saying, we pay for this, where's the accountability? And I think that's the main reason we're here with SB 18 today, which I am in favor of. Thank you.
Thank you, Adam. Any questions?
Mr. Chairman, thank you.
Senator Creighton.
So I wanted to ask the panel, some journalists have reported recently that tenure can be somewhat of an arms race, right? So if Texas had no such policy, what would be the effect on our public universities if every other public university that did offer tenure continued to do so?
Once again, my view is that tenure is not the only thing that good faculty value. So if the package that a faculty member gets is great, it may not include tenure, but it may include other great things. You can still outcompete every other state in the country if you offer a better deal.
Professor Weatherby.
The guaranteed job for life primarily came after World War II when they were trying to recruit faculty because they couldn't pay as well. So what they said was, we'll give you less income, but you can have a guaranteed job. And that's where this all started from. And so the guaranteed job for life, I think, is just a real obstacle for the moving higher education forward. You asked a question earlier, I think, about retention, and there's also the issue that has been brought up of post-tenure review, which, quite frankly, is another red herring. I've been in academia 50 years. I know not of a single professor who has lost his tenure as a result of these post-tenure reviews, which is very troubling. In fact, nationally, the Chronicle of Higher Education did a study, and there's around 250,000 tenured professors in the country. 50 a year lose their tenure. And that's not even a measurable percentage compared to industry, which churns about at 5% or 10% in order to get rid of the dead wood. We're just not doing that in higher ed.
Senator Springer.
Professor, we were talking about the arms race, and I think, in your opinion, would you think that potentially that some professors would rather be at a place where they didn't have people that were sitting there that they thought they had to act a different way than they were, and were more apt to be themselves because they knew they only stood to them and their boss on a regular basis?
Yes, I think as was pointed out earlier, the control becomes the people that are tenured, control the people that aren't tenured. And it's very ugly because what happens is you can churn people and not give them tenure and just keep bringing in new talent.
So some of the best and brightest that, potentially may have a different sort of mindset or just, hey, look, I'm here to do research. I'm here to work. I don't want to play games.
Right.
I just want to produce results.
And
might actually flock.
You're absolutely right, Senator. We're losing a lot of good talent that don't get tenure because it is an up or out policy. What I love about the way the bill was written is, because politically this is going to be messy. I'll guarantee you there's going to be an uproar. But you're letting the people who have tenure keep it. And it'll actually be easier to get rid of them once there is no tenure, I think. And then the people that are being hired in won't be subjected to this power from the tenured faculty. It becomes a problem.
Thank you.
I had a question, Adam, and you touched on it, and it's something that I really hadn't thought a lot about before, about junior scholars. So, as they're hiring new professors, I would assume that all new hires are hoping that they get tenure at some point, right? I mean, so even though I think, Tom, you said 22%?
According to the AAUP, 21%.
21. So, but on the front end, 100% are thinking they'd be in that 22%, right? Okay.
Well, there are many people who come in as
Right.
contract faculty in
Right.
a different way. As he said, professors of practice. But the kind of the gold standard right now in people's mind in coming in as a new graduate PhD student is, I'm going to get a tenure track job. So probably close to 100% of graduate students in a PhD program do think they're going to go on to tenure.
So you have to be on a particular track. It's not all tracks. There's a particular track for tenure. And you said 7 years you mentioned it.
That's one of the most common timelines. So
Okay.
you could do it in 5. If you're an all-star, you could do it even faster. The youngest person ever to get tenure was maybe around 26 years old, but that's the world-class scholar, right? So you are walking on eggshells for 7 years before you earn that tenure.
I mean, that's a while. I mean, we're talking about protecting freedom of thought, and that's one of the arguments for tenure. But I mean, when you have all these candidates, and potentially future tenured professors that are censoring themselves, that's not freedom of thought at all. And you're actually talking about a much larger population that doesn't have that freedom of thought, because that's the pool of candidates that's worried about not getting tenure, right?
And those are the innovators, Senator, right? So these are the ones who are the next generation of talent. If you're too innovative and your older faculty get jealous of you, that could doom your tenure as well.
So it's sort of collateral damage for the future candidates. Tenure, in other words, kind of some of the negatives spill down into the future candidates for tenure because they're afraid they can't get tenure if they express what they really believe in freely and openly. That's a whole other issue that I hadn't thought a lot about, but see that being a huge problem. Especially the next generation. And who we really want to become our future professors in our universities, having to censor themselves for a long time. I mean, that's not a good policy.
That's exactly my view, Senator.
Thank you. Any other questions? Senator Creighton?
I just add to his.
Yes, Professor Weatherby, I was going to ask your thoughts on the previous question.
Yes, I got tenure in 3 years. So at 30 years old, I had a guaranteed job for life, and I did not want it. I didn't think it'd be healthy for me. Plus, I'm talking to organizations about putting technology in that eliminates job. And when I'm dealing with companies, they say, well, easy for you to say you've got tenure. And I can say, I don't have tenure. I resigned it because I don't think it's a good policy. Throughout my career, I've been untenured most of my career. I've been awarded it 4 times, and I've resigned it 4 times. And so I've never had a problem with free speech in the controversial areas of innovation and technology. The only time I've been retaliated against is for speaking out against tenure. Now think about that. Tenure is supposed to protect academic freedom. And I've shared a number of articles with you, but I have been retaliated a number of times within the institution for my speech on tenure. Though most high-quality faculty has been pointed out, behind closed doors, they will admit tenure is not about free speech. It's just kind of a nice perk. Not a lot of people want to give up an unfair advantage, which is having a guaranteed job for life. The high-quality professors, they really don't care.
And this isn't just a conversation that began in the legislative session last session when we held a hearing on this exact subject, right? I mean, it's why do you feel like across the country that these bills are not just being filed, but they're advancing quickly through the legislative process with bipartisan support? In Florida, they introduced a bill this month that allows for university trustees to call a tenure review at any time. In South Carolina, they have the Canceling Tenure Act that prohibits colleges and universities from awarding tenure after, the end of this year. And then at Georgia, the regents can remove or revoke tenure based on summary dismissal policies and cause. Iowa, Missouri, Wisconsin. It keeps going state after state. It's just a different day on the subject. What do you think's leading to that? And why would there be bipartisan support in those states as well?
I think parents are upset because their kids complain about what they experienced that got worse during COVID, because a lot of professors just tape their lectures and say, watch the lecture and here's the exam. And they've actually had to force some of the lazy professors to go get back in the classroom rather than just use Zoom to teach their classes. And so I think people are upset. The other thing, Senator, is that the cost of education is going up at a far higher rate than inflation. Much higher. You can check that out, and the statistics on that are appalling. So people are getting upset about the cost of higher education. They're upset about the experience they have if they're going to grad school, for example, or the experience that their kids are having at school, and they want something done about it. But an administrator can just cop out and say, yeah, we get a lot of complaints on that professor, but we can't do anything about it. They're tenured.
Mr. Lindsay testified that, just organically, without legislation, that numbers on tenured faculty are declining in many different examples. So I just wonder, without legislation, does that continue to be the case? Is that the trend that just will happen with universities on their own, or ultimately would universities ever completely get rid of tenure?
My understanding of that statistic, and I'll be happy to be corrected, is that the rise of online education has increased dramatically the number of faculty without tenure.
Yes. That's very helpful. Thank you.
Interesting.
Professor, you agree with the same?
That's true. And another thing that's happening, you've got some great ratios in that bill that you want to look at, like faculty to students. You ought to also, and I would encourage you to consider administrators to faculty ratios and administrators to student ratios, because at a lot of colleges, the administrators outnumber the faculty, which is a whole separate issue from the tenure issue, which is increasing cost. But in an effort to reduce cost, you can get an adjunct professor to teach a class for the fraction of the cost of a tenured professor. Even though Northwestern University did a study and found out that adjuncts, people who are working in the real world and in teaching, do in fact get better teacher evaluations. So part of that is economics. You're struggling with your budget as a dean, and you're trying to cover all these classes. And if you commit to tenured positions, that's a higher cost commitment than the adjunct. So I don't think they'll go away completely. In fact, I'm a little concerned they could become more powerful, the ones that are tenured, because they've got the guaranteed job versus the people that are practitioner professors or adjunct professors.
I think it's a great point. I wonder, obviously we have some outstanding professors in Texas that are tenured, but also we have, without a doubt, professors that have sort of stepped off the gas, in performance and effort because of tenure. And I just wonder, does that stifle the brightest minds and some of the greatest talent that we have from advancing into positions that otherwise would be available in universities, but for tenure, keeping those positions full, but yet not bringing that much performance? I've asked certain universities to provide the committee with a cash-on-cash return related to the investment in a research-oriented or tasked professor that has tenure, and then what is the dollar-for-dollar cash-on-cash return for the performance based on what has been invested. I just can't seem to get that information. So I just wonder, Mr. Lindsay, do you have any thoughts?
Yeah, in doing my research, this might be IPED's numbers. 5 years you take the average faculty member who gets tenure, 5 years to associate, and then 30 years as full professor. For a public university today, that represents a cost of $10.2 million, according to their numbers. That's money that's
For a public.
Yes, and you're committed to that. That's not going away. That's not a debt that goes away.
Okay. Repeat that one more time.
Yeah, $10.2 million, figuring a 35-year career, 5 years to get to associate, and then to full professor for 30 years after that. So that 35-year career.
Got it.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Sure.
The chair recognizes Senator West as present, and I believe Senator West has questions for the
Right.
witnesses.
First of all, thank you very much. And I didn't hear most of your testimony because I was in another meeting. I'm going to make the assumption, correct me if I'm wrong, that you are in favor of the bill. Is that correct? All right. If you don't mind, Mr. Chairman,
Yes.
in 5 minutes, make the case to me as a senator against the current tenure system individually.
Senator West, thanks for your question.
I said it in the negative, of course. Make the case against tenure.
Make the case against
Tenure, the tenure system.
the substance of my 5 minutes of remarks were that case. There were three major reasons. One, and correct me if I didn't understand your question correctly. One is the self-censorship by junior scholars who need to walk on eggshells for 7 years until they get tenure, who are afraid of innovating too much and inspiring the jealousy of their colleagues. And second is call it the dead wood or activist problem for faculty who are no longer achieving high levels of performance that they did to get tenure. They're now either doing something else or they're doing close to nothing. So junior scholars have a different problem with tenure than senior scholars from where I sit. And then third, Senator, is the difficulty it is to innovate when you hold something constant, and that is such a big part of the academic experience to have tenure versus all kinds of other ways that a university could think about performance and incentivizing good performance. That's the 1 minute version.
Okay. And we've seen that to be a problem in the country.
That's correct.
Okay. Would you agree with me that this tenure issue on a national basis has ended up being a political narrative also?
Well, especially because the second of my three reasons is that faculty members have, instead of focusing on scholarship, have focused on what I'll just, in one word, call activism, where they see their institutions and their own role as changing culture rather than understanding and transmitting culture.
But has that not always been embedded in professors that have tenure throughout history? They've articulated certain positions, pro and con, as it relates to different type of national issues or local issues. Hasn't that always been a trademark of tenure?
I think we're talking about a different, Senator, in extent versus a yes or no question. So tenure is only maybe, the modern American version of tenure only goes back to maybe 1915 or 1940 through the AAUP version of tenure.
Okay, but I'm
Right?
saying, since that
And
time.
so before, excuse me?
Since that time, haven't we had tenured professors speak out on certain types of issues and give their opinions?
Yes, Senator. I think it's much different today than the 1940 version of that. We have
Well, I would
many-
hope it would be back in 1940.
right? Or even the 1990 version of that. I've been paying attention since about then.
Okay.
And what I saw is Ivy League political correctness in the 90s is far outstripped by the level of activism we see today, or that I notice today in higher education.
Next witness.
I was just going to give a shortcut perspective. Imagine if you didn't, once you got
Professor
elected,
Weatherby?
each of you, once you got elected, you were guaranteed your job as senator for the rest of your life. You know, if you operate that way, you'd get Vladimir Putin. I don't think Putin could get elected in Russia if they had an open and fair election. And so there's a lot of professors that students would say, I hated that class. And fortunately, you guys have made teacher evaluations public information, but even with that, you can get bad evaluations, and I've heard professors say, it doesn't matter, I've got tenure. And so there just isn't the accountability with tenure that there should be. And it was never supposed to be about that. It was supposed to be about academic freedom. And that, again, is covered by the First Amendment anyway. So it really is a red herring.
Yeah, I would only add, Senator West, I agree with everything that my fellow panelists have said. And what hit me
If you could lean closer into the
Yes.
microphone. Thank
What hit me when I did the research here on this was the extent of agreement, the critiques of tenure coming from left and right. Of what do they agree on? They agree in their critique of tenure, which is what you asked for, that it stifles innovation, that it increases intellectual conformism, which hurts not only the faculty members but the students, that it provides no real accountability because it's virtually a job for life, right? It's extraordinarily difficult to be forced out. Another critique that comes in an article called The Left Wing Case Against Tenure that appeared in Slate a few years back, that it creates a two-tiered system of, the average adjunct faculty member makes $4,000 a course. So if they try to teach 3 courses a semester to keep things going, that's $24,000, right? And I was provost and dean at the University of Dallas. I've seen the two-tiered society that is the basis of the left-wing critique, and the facts justify it. And also the last criticism, and this from Harvard's Catherine Trower, has found that the percentage of blacks and Hispanics is disproportionately below what you would expect with regard to those who get tenure. So we have one of those rare, in our increasingly polarized times, where you see a great deal of overlap in the criticism of tenure. And, what makes this issue potentially emotional is that people think, well, what are we going to do? Throw all these people to the street after they spend 10 years getting their PhD? No. Other schools have implemented, and this is the trend, rolling contracts that get longer with each positive performance evaluation. Right. So as I mentioned before you got here, I've seen models where you come in right out of getting your PhD, you have a 3-year contract, and it's rolling, and then satisfactory, you get another 3, and then after that, it's 5 years. Some models are 10 years. Now, 10-year contract, that's pretty good. So I don't, fortunately for us, will a lifetime job with protect academic freedom? Yes, it will, but with the bad consequences that both the left and the right seem to agree on. The good news is you can have both, and you can have it with some accountability. Right. And I think that's what this is about.
Do you have copies of those studies with you?
Yes, sir. I'd be happy to. Yes,
Senator West, I also provide a Harvard Business Review article I published back in 2013 called Time for Tenure to Lose Tenure. And a lot of the things that you might like would be in that article.
Okay. Do we have a copy of that?
I provided copies to Senator.
Copy with you. Okay. We'll get it to you.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Any other questions? Sorry, any other questions for the panel members? Okay. If y'all could stick around because we're about to recess for the floor, and we'll come back, after adjournment, whenever that is. Hopefully fairly timely, but I appreciate y'all coming today. Now we've got 2 more invited testimony. Donna Cornell, U of H, and then Brooks Moore. Okay. Actually, I'll retract that here and reconsider that motion. We're about to have to recess for the floor in about 4 minutes, so that's obviously not enough time for any of the committee members to ask any other questions or get your testimony in, because it's 5 minutes each for invited testimony. So, with 4 minutes remaining, that's not going to work. So the subcommittee on Senate Higher Education will go ahead and recess pending the floor, Senate floor. So we'll be back after. Thank you.
2:45 Thank you, Professor.